About 5 years ago, in Dallas, Texas. I was coming through Dallas, and I wanted some structure, discipline, and I just needed a big change in my life. And I thank the Army for providing me that. I actually love the military, and I think much of the stuff that we're about to discuss, you may think that I'm against the military or something like that, but that's not it at all. The military deserves these corrections. The military is great, and it's our job as leaders in the military to correct what we see as wrong and make it a good and fair and equal place. Absolutely. I'd been an atheist for, I guess, 5, 6, 7 years beforehand. I grew up a creationist Christian in the public school system of Dallas, Texas, arguing with science teachers. And, I discovered, talk.origins and, a bunch of the early debunking tools on the internet before folks like Thunderfoot and, yourselves here started reaching out. I basically debunked myself with those articles, and it hurt real bad. Cried for 3 days, then embraced that humiliation and turned it into being humble and embraced being wrong. And from then on, there's no looking back. I never once, I couldn't, if anything, I got protective of other people in doubt and, helped them through their doubt. So I've been an out atheist for several years before I joined the military, and there's no way I was going to turn that off just from joining the military. I was the most fervent of the religious people in my circles, including family and friends. I thought my friends were going to hell, and I was just so worried and scared. It occupied my entire. I was so curious about it too. I would read, Michael Behe and all the creationist standards, intelligent design standards, and just the landscape of Christianity. In addition to the relationship with Jesus, all of that were just, I couldn't separate them, and it just was a driving force in my life. It was me, and my mom is still my best friend, and I get along great with my dad, who's much less religious than she ever was. But no, it really wasn't a big deal to anyone but me. Well, sure. Just about all of the atheists that I've talked to had a similar situation to me when they are asked, what is your religious preference? And that's what they put on your dog tags and your official paperwork. There's a lot to it. It's more than just last rites. A lot of people get confused, think it's just that. There's a lot of things that go into it. But I told them I'm an atheist, and they put down, actually, do the short version here. They put down, the first guy put down Southern Baptist. He put down his own religion, and when he wasn't looking, because I just didn't trust him when I was coming through and enlisting. So I checked his computer while he had his back turned, and I changed it back to atheist. And turns out he noticed that, and he changed it to no religious preference. And they ask you again once you get to basic training, and I told them atheist, and they put down no religious preference. And that is incorrect. I have a preference. And the one thing that is hard to make people understand is that the chaplains themselves, the largest body of chaplain endorsers, these are third party, independent from the government, but these endorsing agents have policies in place that affect the chaplains, and they say they reserve the right to evangelize the unchurched. So either way, no religious preference or atheist, I'm getting 4 times as many pamphlets as the next guy because he's already churched, And what does that even mean? Is it like, what about Jewish people? Are they synagogued? Are they, is a Muslim mosqued? I guess they're all unchurched if they're not Christian. And half the people that complain to some of these organizations are Christians themselves that feel like they're being told that they're the wrong type of Christian. And there's many issues that came up with coming through. I threw away my dog tags, and I refused to wear them. I failed every inspection, and and I just went off saying, "Hey, give me correct dog tags. You gave me the wrong ones. Give me the correct ones." And they just basically checked my name off as if I passed the inspection because they didn't want to deal with my shit. But it took me a year and a half to get out of training. Once I got to my first unit, it was incredibly easy to fix and change. It was like one little piece of paper, and that's it. Yeah, that was one of the most depressing things that I've ever had to do is fill out this thing. They've got this mandatory soldier fitness tracker, right? It's absolutely mandatory. It's a about 45-minute long virtual questionnaire and training system, and part of it is a spiritual fitness test. And I failed the test. It asks you like five to 10 questions, and it says like I attended religious services in the past 4 weeks, and it's not yes or no. It's like 1 through 5. And like some of these things, like if you think it through, it doesn't even make sense, because like if someone attended religious services 5 out of 5, like, and it said like very much all the time or very frequently or something like that, like they don't even have time to be in the army or be a soldier. Or, I mean, it doesn't even make sense. It is designed to fail. And they ask ridiculous questions like, do you feel closely connected to all of humanity and all of the world? And I don't even know how that's possible for anyone to answer, because that sounds like me and my closest 6 billion friends are hanging out playing Nintendo, you know? So these questions are designed to make you score low or confuse you, or that maybe they were dancing around some theological concepts, you know, to try to avoid some sort of litigation, which is coming. But I failed, and let me tell you what I was told here. It says, spiritual fitness is an area of possible difficulty for you. You may lack a sense of meaning and purpose in your life. At times, it is hard for you to make sense of what is happening to you and others around you. You may not feel connected to something larger than yourself. You question your beliefs, principles, and values. Nevertheless, who you are and what you do matter. And goes on blah, 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 and tells you to call a 1-800-suicide hotline. Like, and I
just out of interest, hang on. Is this telling someone in the army that they don't feel part of a larger group?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I didn't even get to the training. The training is ridiculous. The training suggests that everyone does rituals all the time. Some people do rituals like baptisms and prayer, and some people get a haircut. If you didn't know that, getting a haircut is a ritual. I mean, it was bizarre what they were trying to say. Then breathing is a ritual. And how did I fail? I get a haircut every 2 weeks. You know, you get if you don't. You know.
What's that like? I mean, I think I get a haircut once every 2 decades.
Yeah, they did. I mean, it sounds pretty bad when you fail this test. You know, I passed the emotional, social, and family aspects. You know, the parts that are grounded in reality, and I failed the ghost spiritual fitness portion. And they told me to call the 1-800 number, which I didn't know. I didn't know it was a. I didn't know it was a suicide hotline. I just called them because I was going to yell at whoever it was, and the person answered and said, "Hey, you can be anonymous as you are, but if you reference harming yourself or others, we must call the authorities." Blah blah blah. And then I heard something like suicide hotline, and I was like, "Yeah, let me stop you right there. I'm spiritually unfit," and they're like, "We don't do that." And I was like, "Well, actually, you do. I have it. You know, I have a good source right here that says you do. So help me with my spiritual fitness, please." And she goes, "Well, you need to get with your chaplain." So, right. Well, I mean, just a bit of backstory on this whole soldier fitness tracker nonsense. There's a trend of suicides on the rise in the military, and that's what this whole thing was geared towards. And like, we did a Freedom of Information Act request that found a whole lot of information about where this thing came from, and it is scary. Because this has been shopped around. This whole spiritual, all of it has been shopped around to. It's known as like corporate zombie. You know, like those retreats and motivational speaker type things. You know, those sorts of things. And the Army paid $140 million for this. And within a couple of months, the exact same stuff was printed on the back of goldfish crackers. You know, Pepperidge Farm goldfish crackers. And you could get spiritually fit that way, I guess. Or what? I mean, we could have saved $140 million and just bought some crackers. You know, it's bizarre, and it's mandatory. and it's causing all sorts of problems. Christians are affected by this too. This is not just for atheists. This is a huge, huge problem. And their lawyers told them it was a problem. We haven't released the Freedom of Information Act request documents that we've gotten, but we're kind of holding on to a lot of the stuff. But there's a spot in the email traffic where the lawyer said, guys, we can't do this. We can't make this mandatory. The no religious test clause, Article 6, Paragraph 3 of the U.S. Constitution. And also the Establishment Clause, obviously, of the First Amendment. But a chaplain replied all to the command that was creating this thing and said, that sounds like legal advice and not an order. So I recommend non-concurrence, and we go ahead and do this anyway. Yes, absolutely. Mikey Weinstein is a champion for minority religious preferences, if you will. He has Christians and atheists, Wiccans. All of us are under his help for preserving the separation of church and state and equality and just tolerance and all of the things that we desire. When everyone is afraid, and especially when the shit really hits the fan, people like Mikey Weinstein, you can't put he's nonstop. You can't put him back in the box. If you let him out, he will get on TV and he will explain it, and he will use phrases like it's like spiritual rape, which is a bit much for me. I'm not going to say it like that, but I'm glad someone like that is out there. And what he does is he gets these pro bono lawyers, like world-class lawyers. He'll work with the ACLU sometimes, or this or that. Right now, the Jones Day Law Firm is handling this case with myself and 120 other, plaintiffs. So
now, Matt, let me ask a clarifying question about that. You said that this this chaplain was fully aware that this was unconstitutional, and yet recommended non-compliance?
It's a little more complex than that, because he's technically, the words that he said are true. It is legal advice. That's all these commanders ever get from they call JAG. And I'm sorry if I'm getting into the jargon here, but the lawyers in the military, they're not like, hey, I order you to plead guilty or whatever. They give you advice. They give you counsel. They are not, everything he says is just advice. So it was basically a way to not look as bad at what he was saying, but he was exactly, you got it right, but he was trying to sound clever about it in case someone ever came along and did a Freedom of Information Act request.
See, one of the things that we grow up with a lot of misinformation being dominated by religion. There's a lot of associations, word associations that we're conditioned to accept. Like the word good being associated with Christian, and then of course we would look at priests, or at least we grew up with this thing where we would look at priests as being better than regular people. That's the way they wanted to condition us to think. But one of the problems that we have in this country is a lot of people look at the word democracy and they think that politically we are a democracy, and that if you have enough people wanting to vote against it, that they can overturn any law, including the Constitution. And the difference of this being a republic is that it doesn't matter if everybody wanted to vote against it. The law is what makes the rule, and that's what you have to adhere to. So it's amazing to me that so many times in history that bodies of lawyers and other people would gather together and make a law that they knew in advance stood against the Constitution, knowing that it could not fly. Case in point, what just recently happened in Indiana and Missouri, where they're passing legal mandates to have teachers teach creationism in school. Wholly unconstitutional. They're going to do it anyway. They know it's going to be a court battle. They can't avoid it. Surely this chaplain that you're talking about knew that not everyone was going to not notice this.
Well, actually, I have a theory about that too, because in a military context, the same thing is going on in Texas right now. Now, that's my home state. That's where I'm likely to be buried. There's a battle going on with 3 of these politicians that are federal level senators, not state senators, actual senators, that are calling for the Veterans Affairs memorial grounds to include 4 fringe Christian groups, these little groups that like to do little prayer services in every military funeral in Texas. That's crazy. They literally want to pray over my dead body, literally. And they know it's unconstitutional, but you start looking at the way that they pursue it, they know that they'll probably get away with it until someone stands up. And what they do is they throw their bullying tactic, their weight around, and they'll bully someone. They'll say, "And I will not." This guy, I think his name was Representative Culberson in Texas. He said that he would not. He would zero out the salary of anyone who didn't go along with his plan. He had that power. He could literally just not pay the person their salary that they deserve. Now, obviously, if it came to a court case, he would lose in any jurisdiction, especially on appeals if it got that far, if it got past one judge somehow. So you're right, but it's so pervasive that they know statistically they're not going to be challenged. And my point is, challenge them every time. Every time. Do not back down. You are right. And not just this, but all the things that I've done, I stuck my neck out, right? I stuck my neck out, and I didn't see an axe coming down to chop it off when I looked around. Go ahead. I've been promoted early and recommended for early promotion ever since I've been speaking out. I've been commended for my leadership skills, and I've had several generals march me into their office, close the door, look over their shoulders, and they'll say, "I'll deny it if you tell anyone this, but I'm a huge supporter and a big fan. And by the way, my screen name is this when I write on your blog." So, yes, and there are several other people that have known me personally. We've had these little meetings going on at Fort Bragg, and as we move and we get spread apart to other destinations, we stand up in other spots, and we stand up new groups, and it's like it's a contagious thing. And this initial epicenter at Fort Bragg is very much catching on at places like Travis Air Force Base, where they had a nativity scene that was prominent as hell. And we donated American Atheist. I called my buddy who's stationed there, and he told me about it. And I was like, "Hey, we'll donate a sign if you go put it up." And it was a little more complicated than that, but we had a sign that they couldn't refuse. It said, "Have a safe holiday season from the atheists at Travis Air Force Base." I mean, are you against safety? Why would you block this? So it got up, and we had a nice little sign right up there with some equality. And that, unfortunate, we would rather them not to have it at all, so we wouldn't have a limited public forum. But it is what it is, and at least we have some visibility, respect, and equality.